Okay, hi. So this is webcast number 2, part of 5 little webcasts that I'm putting together for my MA students. The first webcast looked at some basic issues and some basic thoughts about what an essay should look like, and particularly how we mark an essay and with the dimensions of a really good essay. Analytical skill, critical understanding, a good clear structure, written in nice sharp English, and a good bibliography, and showing a really wide reading. What I'm going to do in this webcast is talk about the introduction. Now, there's no doubt that in many ways your introduction is the most important part of your essay. When I'm reading a big pile of MA essays, when I pick one up and the essay introduction seems a bit confused, a bit weak, makes no references to the wider literature, and doesn't really set out how it's going to achieve some response to the core question, or doesn't really have a core question, I generally know then that that essay is likely, highly likely, to be not as strong as an essay that provides a really tight, focused, vibrant introduction. Good introduction generally flows into a good, strong essay. So, if I were giving you some tips on how to write a strong introduction, I would maybe structure it around some of these points. Well, first of all, from the first webcast, what I would want you to have done is thought about your hook, your core nub, your core focus, and the overall structure, so that you would have a essay plan already drawn out on a piece of paper, maybe just in bullet points. That then will allow you to start writing your introduction. And it might start by providing a paragraph just on the broader scholarship, the broader terrain in which this specific essay is going to be located. So, for example, if we continue with this idea of an essay on governance, risk regulatory regimes, and earthquakes in Pakistan and America, and I don't want 30 essays on this topic now, this is purely just to help me explain some issues around essays. Say we're going to go with that topic of risk regulation regimes and earthquakes. What I might suggest students would do is to have a brief paragraph in which they provide an overview of the literature on governance, risk regulation regimes, and earthquakes. Very, very briefly, and lots packed full of references. So you might say, governance has developed as a key concept within the social sciences in recent years. One element of this literature is a focus on risk regulation regimes. These regimes really focus attention on how politicians and public servants can seek to prepare the state for certain contingencies that may or may not occur. So, earthquakes, tsunamis, natural disasters, nuclear explosions, some of the risks that are associated with Ulrich Beck's Risk Society. So basically, the aim of that first paragraph is just to sketch out the broader terrain. Not a lot, just one paragraph, but quite a few references to allow the reader to zoom in and know quite clearly where this essay is couching itself within the broad sphere of governance and public policy. Once you've done that broad introduction, I would move very quickly to setting out, as clearly as you can, your hook. So you might say, within this broader terrain, within this broader scholarship, literature, research, the focus of this essay is on risk regulatory regimes and earthquakes. It focuses on this topic by providing research into contingency planning in Pakistan and America. The central conclusion of this essay is bum, 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 bum. You're not writing a thriller book. You're not writing a surprise where you have to keep your findings until the very last line of your conclusion. It's fine to set out very clearly your core question and then the core finding. You might also, in this part, after you've set out your core hook, you might try to just flesh out a few secondary questions. So for example, if you're focusing on earthquakes, governance, risks, you might say, you know, one of your secondary questions might be, what examples are there of risk regulatory regimes vis-a-vis natural disasters more broadly? How have technological developments allowed governments to prepare more fully for the risks associated with earthquakes? What's the relationship between economic development and contingency planning in relation to earthquakes? Just to set up a few of the secondary questions that you're going to touch on in the body of the work. Okay, so you might have this broader introductory first paragraph. Then you drill down onto your hook, you set out a few secondary questions, and then maybe you set out what's the core finding, what's my core argument. Once you've done that, I think it's really good, and the good essays often do that, if possible, to show why what you're doing is distinctive. Think about it. What are you trying to do which is adding just a little small amount to our broader knowledge on this topic? So you might have done some background reading. You might have found a huge amount of material that looks at the issue of earthquakes and risk regulatory regimes in North America and various other parts of the world, but nothing on Pakistan. Or you might be adopting a different theoretical approach to understanding the risks associated with earthquakes. But what claims to distinctiveness might you be able to make about your essay? Why is it different? Why is it original? Maybe you're trying to do something a little bit different. If that's so, then make sure you set that out very clearly in the introduction. And then finally, once you've set out your hook, some secondary questions, why it's distinctive, you then need to say, and again, being clear is by far the best way to approach this. How does my essay engage with this hook, with this question? So you might just say this essay is divided into 5 sections. The aim of the first section is to review the broader material on governance, risk regulation and earthquakes in order to tease out what appear to be the main lessons or the main insights from the current research base. This then flows into a second section, section 2, which explains very briefly why I've adopted these 2 case study examples, Pakistan and America, and some of the issues this throws out in terms of methodology and generalizations. You might say then that section 3 focuses on Pakistan, section 4 focuses on the UK, and section 5 provides an analysis, a comparison between those 2 cases in order to tease out continuities, differences, patterns, changes, etc. You might say then that the final 7th section provides a conclusion and particularly seeks to situate this focused research on Pakistan and North America within a broader appreciation of a number of much wider issues concerning democracy and governance. It's a really interesting and very good idea to view an MA essay, and to some extent all essays, a bit like an hourglass, as starting very broad in your introduction and then gradually tapering in to your hook, to your focus in the main substantive body, and then in your conclusion just very gently moving out again to underline why this essay matters, how you can locate your specific topic within maybe 2 or 3 broader issues or themes. Okay. So, I hope, having watched this, you should know how to write, and I'm not telling you how to do it, it's your essay. I'm just giving you some ideas about the parts that often make up a good MA essay. If you found this at all helpful, and you might not have done, then you might want to go to podcast number 3, which is going to focus on the body, the main substantive part of your essay, how you engage with your hook, where the most marks are really in terms of scholarly potential and weight. That'll be in podcast number 3. Okay, thanks.